I'm really gutted.
On to Lineker.
I'm gutted we didn't get to Gary Lineker. Well, Kyle was still here. I've sort of planned to show Kyle all this, but well, obviously we chatted about it anyway. But Gary Lineker, I suffered racist abuse for my darkish skin when I was a boy. I've actually watched him talk about this, and he said something like, "Although I'm as English as you come," which is something that one of those people that claims they're not racist says, isn't it?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, I got racist abuse. So you can imagine the backlash after something ridiculous as this.
I saw so many memes come out about this.
I bet I've got more.
There's so many.
I bet I've got some you haven't seen.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
so Russ Kieran has already remixed the Tropic
He's
Thunder.
done about 10. I'm sure Russ Kieran's put out about 10 on, just on this one subject.
It's like it's the new Kevin Spacey, Gary Lineker. So yeah, Tropic Thunder, blackface Gary Lineker. Kevin Spacey is in this.
Yeah, he's in there.
There he is.
Right,
yeah, of course. Then we've got NWA with Gary Lineker as MC Rent. Amazing. Really, really good. For anyone that doesn't know, that's Rosa Parks. So that's
She refused to give up her seat.
She refused to give
So,
up her. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think
she
she
refused to give up
she
her
sat at the
seat.
front of the bus. That
Yeah,
was the
when
thing.
if a white person got on, you were supposed to give them your seat.
Back then they give black people the best seats at the back of the bus.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. now the best seats at the back of the bus. So anyway, yeah, Gary Lineker as Rosa Parks. Oh my God. Right, then it started to get really, really out of control. I actually said like to Sagehead, we need something like Gary Lineker, like blackface.
Being beaten in the plantation.
Yeah, that Django Unchained, Gary Lineker. Now, on the right is obviously Sagehead's work. Django Unchained. Gary Lineker turned down the lead role. Lineker turned down. On the left, I don't know who made this. Uncle Tom Jones.
It's a brilliant blend.
What's new, Pussy Clark? That's got to be Messerschmitt. It looks like Messerschmitt's work to me. No one's got blends like that. Saying that, Sagehead is getting pretty good. If you look here, it's nice work.
So much to do Will Smith slapping Gary Lineker.
No, Gary Lineker slapping Chris Rock.
Yeah, or whatever.
Oh, mate.
So mimetic sources, you get on that and send it in.
Endless possibilities. This is Sagehead work. So Gary Lineker blackface at the front of a pride parade. The thing is, like, you can't see it's Gary Lineker, but you know it is.
What was the doll back in the 60s and 70s and 80s?
Oh, what? The Gollywog?
The Gollywog, yeah. Is that what this is?
Well, no, this is like the blackface minstrels back in, is it the 20s or 30s? When like, the black people weren't allowed on TV.
Right.
So this is where blackface actually comes from, the minstrels. So here he is. This was my idea. Dressed as like a black and white minstrel. The blackface minstrel with an Uzi 9mm on his belt, eating fried chicken at a Black Lives Matter concert protest. Yeah, Gary Lineker. Why refugee is coming to live with me? Because he took refugees in, didn't he?
Brilliant. 233.
Oh yeah, I saw these ones are fucking brilliant.
So for anyone that hasn't seen Coming to America,
It's an amazing movie.
it is a great movie with Eddie Murphy. The poster in the background, Soul Glow. What was his name? Randy.
What is it? Oh fuck. Randy
something.
Randy Watson.
Randy Watson.
Yeah.
That's it. I think we've got Randy Watson in a minute. It's Trevor from EastEnders. No, not Trevor. Patrick from EastEnders. When the blowback from your woke bullshit hits. Oh yeah, that's Ross Kieran. This is Ross Kieran's work. Brilliant. Gary White. So yeah, endless amount of Gary Lineker memes.
The story of Windrush.
It has got
Yeah, here we go. This is Randy Watson from Sexual Chocolate from Coming to America.
Gifted in Black. That's brilliant.
Yeah, this is when apparently when he was a young footballer, because of his darkish skin, he got abused for being black.
So has he actually claimed any sort of heritage, any foreign heritage at all?
No, he literally said, "I'm as English as you come."
Yeah, I know he said that as well.
I mean, his name is Gary.
His name's Gary Lineker.
Yeah.
I mean, what could it possibly be? A bit Greek or something? What,
No,
Lineker?
Indian, maybe, I thought.
Well, he goes, I have slightly dark skin, but I'm as English as you come. Why would you say that? What, people with
He's
dark
a
skin?
shit-stirring little whore.
People with dark skin can't be English? Really?
Yeah.
Come on. So, yeah, well, everyone thinks he's a dick now anyway, if they didn't already. So, yeah, that was the Gary Lineker meme section. What can we say about that? Protect Auntie Koviev's back. Protect yourselves and other loved ones from polio. Ensure your child.
Rakesh says he's definitely not Indian. No, I know he's definitely not Indian, but he's an interesting character. I can't believe he's a bit of he's played the victim, I think, quite a lot lately.
Yeah, well, I think this is what Kyle was saying to me earlier on off air. He's saying he's just a victim. He just loves being the victim.
Didn't he do something around the how he was affected by Brexit? I think, wasn't he, or something. He's been affected.
Oh, mate, everything. Brexit, climate change,
Racism.
the pandemic, racism. He's a little bitch, really.
He's whiter than snowflakes, says Yogi.
Yeah, he's pushing all this LGBT shit as well. The alphabet mafia, as Carl Ricardo coined
Alphabet
it.
Mafia.
We like that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Apparently, yeah, this is from Future Ghost. I've had my quail flu vaccine. Shit, I saw there, didn't I? Lovely bit there from Future Ghost. Polio wankers.
Yeah, I saw this.
This is good.
I've seen one with Gary Lineker's face out the window.
White wankers.
Yeah.
Shouting white supremacist at someone.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, this is from the In-Betweeners.
Brilliant work.
And they say to me, you have to go into the jungle and you're going to drink ayahuasca. So I went into the jungle, I found a shaman, and I drank ayahuasca. And during that first ceremony, I found my apprenticeship.
As we tear down Babylon, brick by brick, piece by piece, wash them to smithereens. Over beats, double L.
I came to this jungle looking for the shaman, to learn knowledge, to get trained. I got questions, need explaining. Who manifests these spells we are making? Talk for days, the word was spoken. The third eye's wide open. My 7 chakras awoken. Then the Babylon spell got broken. Come to the jungle, now I'm the shaman. Draw for the power of thunder, raid. It's no mortal combat. I won't draw for souls, I'm not on that. Why? The vibration's high. Can't test I and I speak to the Buddha and Rastafari. When we chat to the prophet, it's all no lie.
With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They gon' serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer. With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They gon' serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer.
Deep in the jungle, knees in the dirt, next to the tribal leader. Speaking the word of the healer, I'm feeding the words. Seeking the teacher vine, mimosa creeper, M-A-O-I inhibitor. Elio vine can't mimic her, safe for mixtures, boiled in vinegar. Recipe taught by ancient visitors. Feet on the ground, I feel like I'm slipping away. When my eyes look through to the clearing, the sun beats down and my face is burning. What's that in my peripheral hearing? Ingesting the chemical gateway, exiting the physical plane, inspecting the neural pathway, assessing the spiritual pain.
With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They gon' serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer. With the shame I smoke with the Rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They gon' serve the same master. Too many questions, one answer.
It's no joke to drink ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, alright, boga. One dose, game over. Heart of the forest, chilling with the elders, learning customs of ancient cultures. Shamanic technology. We fulfill the prophecy. No words describe this logically. Close both eyes, you might see properly. Wait, can you feel it? Hold it in before you release it. You got the key to revealing the secret. They tried hard to conceal it. Wait, how you feeling? Is it illusion? Is it the real thing? Seeing isn't always believing, hallucinating or lucid dreaming.
With the shame I smoke with the rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They gon' stop the same master. Too many questions, one answer. With the shame I smoke with the rasta, learn from the prophet, teach the pastor. They gon' stop the same master. Too many questions, one answer.
Okay, so tonight, that was just a little surprise, by the way, guys. We have actually got 2 proper guests. Our first is one of our favourites. She is back only for an hour with a quick in and out presentation. It is the one they call Human Vibration.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, that's better.
There we
Brilliant.
go.
We're in time. There's
It's
no lag.
Chrome. I was using what an amateur move. I was using Safari.
How ironic is it that to get things to work properly, you actually
had
have
to do
go
the
back to
Chrome.
you have to go back to the beast system. You have to get the adrenochrome.
You know what? And this fits right in because Chrome goes to the Chromacolor, and it's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And I actually kind of try to avoid the Chrome sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's what works. And here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, you've got to
It
use
got
what
us
works at
again.
the end of the day. Hey,
gotta use what works.
we're still existing in this realm. We've got to use its tools. So welcome back. We've got you for an hour. So we're going to cut to the chase. What is your presentation about today?
Today I wanted to talk about magenta. I've
favourite
hit
subject.
purples. I've hit purples quite a bit, and important to say, magenta is right smack dab in the center of purples. It's the most important purple, but it also plays such a huge role in how we interpret reality as we know it. The color magenta really does, in ways that we've never really thought about, even though it's right in front of us. And I think that's how most things work, is it's so clear and right in front of us. We just never really think to take a moment to look. And so today the presentation is on the color magenta and its influence in so many areas of our understanding of reality, and its influence on everything, just everything. It's a really powerful color. And I've been focused on purples for a while. I feel like purples have been something I'm kind of like known as as purples, and magenta is the most specific nexus point. And so to figure out how we get there and why it's important and why I even talk about it, this is an exciting presentation for me. I love it. So yeah. Okay,
We're
so let's
excited too.
see. So how do I share? I don't think I've ever shared my screen before with y'all, but let's see if I can do
There's
that.
a button at the bottom in
Yep.
the middle. Yeah, and then your screen will appear in the green room, and then yeah.
All right.
So if you're only using one screen, basically you won't be able to look at the stream. You'll probably just look at what's on your screen, which will be your
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Not quite yet.
Let's see.
It should appear on my little bar here.
Oh. Man, system preferences again, locked down. Let's see it one more time. Actually, if you guys, do you guys have that I sent you earlier?
I do have it.
Yeah.
That's why I've got it here. Don't worry.
Yeah, let's just
Right.
go with that. I think I made one minor change to it, but
I
Let's
will
go
be
with
the presentation master. Right. Okay. So I'll just show this screen.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for
Apologies,
rolling with my
guys.
technical
That's it.
difficulties.
No,
Actually,
it's all right.
I really enjoy technology, but sometimes you just
Okay.
gotta
So
go with it.
here we are. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so magenta for me, when I break down the most simplified element of the word, to me, it just feels like it breaks into magic enter. And magenta itself as a color is a pretty magical color. And I feel like it enters our eyes for magical purposes. And that's kind of really what the presentation is anchored around. So if you go to the next slide, this is what we understand as magenta. This is magenta right here. This color is today's interpretation of what we understand as magenta, hot pink, fuchsia. These names of colors are used pretty much, they can be swapped out and used. Magenta is fuchsia, is hot pink. And so this is kind of what we interpret that color to be today. But if we rewind to when it was really first introduced through, what's important to note is it's a synthetic introduction. And this is in the 1800s when so many things of note, electricity. The next slide is what we first understood as fuchsia. This is magenta. This is the first magenta. And this was introduced through a synthetic dye process, the first of its kind. And this was in the 1800s by an individual named William Perkins. And he accidentally stumbled upon a process that created this color, which to this point in history, until the 1860s, had never been produced synthetically. And the only way it could have been produced at this time was through this really, really, really intricate process of seashell extraction, crushing of these seashells. We'll get into that a little bit down the road. But at this point, this was just revolutionary to have this color be created. And so I wanted to kind of talk about this color and its introduction. So the next slide shows it just started to get introduced into fashion very quickly. It was a popular color. The next slide shows how important I feel like this individual's contributions are to society, is that he got his own little Google Doodle. So this guy's, he's noted. He's Mr. Purples. He's noted for bringing this color, this synthetic process that had never existed. He's really known for this. And so much, I mean, Google Doodles are, I feel like a lot of times really revelatory with the things that they kind of introduce and the things, the people that they highlight. And it's usually just some sort of psyop and misdirection. But I feel like history is fiction, and Google Doodles are also like supporting that, buttressing that like historical fiction for so many things. So the fact that this guy got a Google Doodle about purples just shows that he's Mr. Purples. It was important. Okay. The next slide shows, whenever I get onto these tears, there's always some sort of underlying mystery. Like to date, no one has been able to replicate this individual's process. It's a secretive process. He brought this never before mass-produced synthetic purple color, which was then called magenta. It was actually called magenta. This was what we understand, but it's more of a purple color. But this was the original magenta. But he brought it to market. But it's the process is lost to history. We don't know what his process is. We still can't recreate it. But yet now today, it's just like the market is swarmed with synthetic purples. It's just introduced. He brought it. We can't reproduce it, but yet somehow it's ubiquitous. And so that's like that's a theme that I want us to keep just to remember, is that type of theme of like this brilliant introduction to market. And then through history, it's like, oh, we don't know how to do that anymore. That's lost to time. Oh, we can't reproduce that anymore.
Like going to the moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
They lost that technology with that guy, that one interview.
We accidentally destroyed all of the technology. All of it.
Love to go back. I would love to go back, but we can't because we destroyed it all. But actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think we're going back to the moon. Air quotes, quote unquote, because I don't think we've ever been, and I don't think that the moon is a physical body, and I don't think that we're really going. But it's interesting that that's back in the zeitgeist. I think we're actually planning on going back to the moon with the Artemis rocket. Anyway, it's on the horizon. Okay, so
I can't wait for that presentation.
Keep that in mind. Oh yeah. Well, actually, I kind of go into a little bit of space at the end, which I always do. So this always kind of connects. Okay. So the next slide, but I am going to try to zoom through it because I could just go on forever. So the next. Okay. So a lot of people are familiar with this story of how purples were made a long time ago and why it was like a color of royalty back in the robes and the royalty and the biblical and all this stuff. The whole idea of purple back then was that there was these seashells that were crushed and it made purple. And there was this milk that was extracted from it. It was this crazy process, but that process is another thing that has been completely lost to history, can't be recreated. People have looked into it, and I highlighted this portion where it's saying like the amount of shells that would needed to be to even do like a tiny little sliver of fabric is way more than you could imagine harvesting as just to dye a tiny amount. Like there's no way that we could have produced anything of measure using the way that they told us. And I think history just makes up all these stories. So I think that the shell story is a historical fiction. So I just earmarked that, had that in there specifically just to mention that sometimes the stories of history about how things are done are fiction, and then sometimes they're like, oopsie, we lost it, or sometimes like it's like, oopsie, we just don't know how they did it. And it's just a common theme. Okay, so the next slide is, okay, so magenta gets its name from this process right here. This is an aniline, which is coal tar, literally coal tar from the 1860s, coal, like black coal. And they dropped an alcohol, like an ethanol alcohol process on it. They did this thing called like this imbibing process where they drop an alcohol element onto the source, and this coal produced this element called fuchsine. And fuchsine is the original name of magenta. That got renamed to magenta. But I think it's really interesting because the color is coming from something that we understand to be like pure black, like coal. Our whole idea of like coal and tar and oil and it's black goo and it's just blackness. We think of it as blackness, and yet it's like in this instance from this coal tar base, it creates this. Through this aniline dye process, it creates this permanent dye that is like the foundation of the process of another process for magenta is this fuchsine, which comes from black tar. Anyway, that was very, very interesting. And then the next slide kind of talks about that. It's a distillation of, tar, and that was the first synthetic magenta. Fuchsine got then called magenta. So this is all like and this is all in the 1800s, 1860s is when all this is happening. So we didn't really have a vocabulary for magenta before the 1860s. So that's something to kind of note as well. And like the extraction of it and the actual ability to create this color didn't really start happening until this magical processes started being understood in the 1800s.
I also heard from Inner Guardians that the colour blue was actually introduced in that century as well. That the concept or the name or the concept of the colour blue before, the sky was called like a wine colour or something like that. Do you think that could have been a precursor for the synthesizing of this magenta colour? I
have a sinking sensation that the world as we know it was kind of uncolored before we started introducing these synthetic colors. I think that we had kind of a truly drab, natural, neutral experience and expression of the world around us. And then synthetic colors started being introduced. And we started seeing stuff that we never saw before because synthetic projections were being... I think so much more of what we see goes on in our brain, and our eyes are just the receivers. And I think Jay? A lot of these, yes.
I used to have this thing at school. I came up with this idea, and I used to spin people out with it. I said, imagine if you went in a spaceship to another planet, and on this planet, when you landed, there were things on the surface that were a brand new colour that you'd never seen before, right? I said, first of all, try to imagine that, and that would really, do people's head in. Imagine a colour you've never seen before. But then I said, imagine if you wanted to bring it back to Earth, you would have to bring something back of that colour to bring it back to Earth. You couldn't say, all right, now I've seen that colour, we'll go and recreate that on Earth.
Right.
You would have to bring something of that colour, but the chances are when you brought it back, it probably wouldn't be the colour that you saw it on that planet because it's to do with the spectrum of light.
Atmospheric, all that stuff. Yeah.
So
and I do wonder...
Human vibration, before we go any further, when you're talking about the origins of magenta, so and purples and stuff. So I've just got this up. So I'm not sure if you're aware, I'm a pretty keen forager, and there's a mushroom called Dyer's maize cap. I'm just going to put that on the screen here, right? So this is a mushroom, and they use it for dyes, for yellows, oranges, and browns, right? Now, at one stage, the mushroom can go a strange colour, and they actually get some purple dye out of it here at one particular stage in the mushroom.
Wow.
So that they did used to get purple dye. I don't know what century, but they've been doing this for quite a long time. But it was only
Is it psychedelic at all?
No, it's not. It's completely inedible. No, it's got no
purple mushroom.
But it's very rare for them to go this colour. But they used to. It used to be like a very expensive, like abnormal thing for them to manage to extract some purple dye from that. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you that.
Yeah, I've never heard of that method for extracting purple dye. That's very cool. But then you think about it too, like beets, there's all sorts of ways but these are methods, what's interesting about this conversation too, is that the type of dyeing technique that we're going to be talking about moving forward is light-based. This is all light transfer. There's one thing about, so we all know what it's like to mix paints together. Those act a certain way when we mix certain colors of paints together in this physical world. When we're talking about mixing of light, things operate in a much, much, much different way. When I mix green paint and red paint together, I can get this like grayish, brownish, goulash color. Like it's gross. It's just kind of like, we know what that looks like when you try to mix green and red together. Paint. But when you mix green light and red light, you actually make yellow. It reacts it's totally different methods of reaction and color creation, and it's having to do up here. It's more in our brains. It's working off of. There's ways that color and light exists and reacts in the physical world. That's one layer. There's a sub-layer or an upper layer. I'm not sure, but there's another layer of how light operates from the light source, artificial light sources, to our eyes, to our eyeballs. And our eyes are the participant in making it happen.
So there's a difference between the pigment of something and light, because when I did A-level art, one thing I always remember is the teacher, he was very knowledgeable. He actually taught the difference between white and black. He said, in paint, white is no colour, and black is actually all colours all mixed together.
Oh yeah,
but
we're going to get into that here in a second.
But in light, it's the other way round. White is all colours, and black is no colour. So it's actually the opposite.
Yep.
Yeah,
we're going to get.
That's just.
That's a mind fuck.
Yeah. It is. We actually have some slides on that. So this is a really interesting conversation too, because we learn basics, but we don't learn everything, and sometimes the basics are not quite, that they're not enough to really let us know how things work. Okay, so the next slide was kind of interesting. So we understand that this coal tar causes color, but it's not that abstract, because if you've ever seen oil on water, you know that causes a rainbow, like oil on the streets or something, oil on water, oil slick, So we kind of understand that like tar can, like black tar, when we understand it as like this black goo substance, actually has everything in it. So the idea again of like subtractive colors where everything's mixed together creates black or nothingness, or the opposite, so from black can be color, or from white can be color, and we'll show how those are made on just, and it's all about our eyes. Okay, so the next slide is really how it's, so fuchsia, the color is actually just named after the flower, because this does exist in nature. We're talking about something that does exist in nature, and the name of it comes from this fuchsine, this oil-based, tar-based, fuchsia color that they used as the basis of synthetic dyes, which started this whole revolution of all this stuff. It was based on the flower because it does represent nature. But what's interesting is that if you go to the next slide, the flower was named. Where does fuchsia get its name? The flower fuchsia gets its color name. It's from the person who discovered it. His name was Fuchs, and that means fox. And fox means a cunning or sly. If you go to the next slide, I kind of have that highlighted. But like, I think that the naming of things is so interesting. This color is kind of a color of trickery. And so the fact that it underpinning the name fuchsia is fox, which means a cunning or sly person, or like to baffle or deceive, to outfox someone. So I love that fuchsia is based on the word fox. And we'll actually come back to that because I think that it's important later on, and I'll show why. Okay, so the next slide, you guys should recognize this. It's a 20-pound note. It is ultimately the truth. Light is therefore color. Everything that we see through our eyeballs is light, and everything that light brings us is color. Point blank, period. Once light goes away, color goes away.
Yeah.
And so light is color, color is light. They are synonymous, they go together. There is not one without the other. The next slide is our visual light spectrum. This is everything. This is everything. This is what we understand our world to be. And what I think is very interesting is magenta is not on here. Magenta is nowhere on the visible light spectrum. What if you look up visible light spectrum from any way, shape, or form, this is what you're going to get, because it is this spectrum, this line starting with violet on one side, which is what we see there on the left, and then going to red on the other side, and the two sides fall off into ultraviolet, which we are unable to see. And
there's actually no purple there at all. Purple isn't there.
Violet, right. Purple is actually created when we start wrapping around. They represent color-wise, because violet we can't really interpret. We kind of drop off at blue. Like we really kind of drop off what we can perceive as true. And so like this is kind of just more of an interpretation of what it is. And I'll kind of go into that more too. But even this purple on there.
The reason I'm asking is I actually put some of your work in one of my latest lyrics, and one of the bars says, subvert the spectrum like purple with DPM, decrease visibility. So because it's not actually on there, is it?
Right.
Right off the edge where it's dark.
They fake us on that side.
It's not on there. Magenta is not on this spectrum.
Right.
So essentially, it doesn't exist.
To get there, the next slide is kind of it's what we understand as an octave change within our music system, how we start at the bottom and end up at the top, but yet at the bottom, and just it's repeating. But we have to, like, what's that magic that
it's like the horseshoe
that
theory
allows it to start over, right? And for the color spectrum, if you want to get to the color wheel, which we're taught about the color wheel. To get there from the spectrum, we have to do a bending. We have to do a wrapping around, and that is what we understand as the color wheel. And there on the the lower side there, the lower right side, it's the fuchsias. It's the blue into red, which creates that spectrum of magenta, which it's the connective tissue between the opposites. And in that is power. It's connecting the polarities. And anytime you wrap around, anytime that you mobilize a polarity, I think that there's energy there. There's energy in the connective forces of.
Is it true to say
opposites.
that is that like at 33 degrees? Well, it's at 33%, isn't it?
Yes, actually, rose, the color rose, which is along the line of purples. Which, if you go to the next slide. So the next slide is the line of purples, and I talk about this. I've gone on and on about this forever and ever. I love the line of purples, and this really shows this shows what is created. This is like the zipper. This is when you connect opposite of red and blue, what we can really see of red and blue, and this is what you connect them around. And in the center, and the very center of that is magenta, at the very center point, and it's created. It's a created color. It's created at the center to like zip up the wrapping around of the visible light spectrum. And in that is a force, is an energetic force. I think magenta is as far as light goes, I think that magenta is a very powerful and significant delivery device of light information. And as we go forward, like there's a lot that I explore as far as that goes, like why magenta is so key. Magenta is very key in how we interpret this world. The next slide breaks down how our eyes actually take in light. We basically break the entire visible light spectrum, that beautiful little rainbow we just looked at, that long, beautiful spectrum. Our eyes don't do a great job at taking in the whole vast spectrum. Our eyes kind of like consolidate into three major groups, and they're not called the red, green, and blue cones, but that's pretty much what they equate to. They're called like the small, medium, large cones, but they basically break down to us being sensitive to the colors we understand as blue, the colors we understand as green, and the colors we understand as red. And if you go to the next slide, these are the base points. These are the next slide is how our eyes ultimately operate. Boop. Did the guys drop off? Uh-oh. I'll just keep going.
Sorry, we're here.
Sorry, we're just doing
okay.
some words above admin. Sorry.
No
next
problem.
slide.
I know that
We're getting sent memes live on air by people that are watching the show.
The show's far too interactive for anyone to realise there's so many things going on here. Sorry. Right, next slide.
I know that I know that, man, once I get going, I really should be the one leading. I'm sorry to keep you guys
we love
doing
having you on. It's great. We can just sit back and enjoy.
Always technical difficulties. But these right here, these are the approximations, the base approximations for how our eyes really break down the red, green, and blue. And these are how our eyes operate. These are the sensitivities, the key sensitivities that our eyes, our orbital systems, how we human beings take in light. This is basically what it is right here. This breakdown, one rod, one cone. It's one sensitive to red, one sensitive to this color green, one sensitive to color blue. And we approximate along the scale, along what we can, borrowing in bits and bytes from here and there. But our brains basically take light in this version, RGB.
Can I just interject? Mm-hmm. Isn't it funny how all the binary opposites and like the Hegelian dialect and everything, we have our red and blue on our polar opposites in so many different binaries. And what do we have in the middle here? It's the green screen where it's actually it's the green screen where it all plays out. On the screen, on the fake playing ground,
the projected playing ground.
Yeah, Godfad, I'm sure does a little presentation on this as well.
Big up, women.
It's pretty interesting. I love that more people are seeing. I mean, these are building blocks. I think I even I wrote there at the bottom
templates.
The building blocks of reality as we know it. These three things. These are basically how our eyes operate. And
it's the triad. It's a spectrum. It's the whole spectrum of color, basically reduced into a triad.
Right. And you'll see each one, its maximum level is, as far as light, is 255, 255, 255. Anyway, and then how do you get to magenta? Well, you just take the green color out of the equation. Magenta is basically full red, which we just saw, and full blue, which we just saw. And you take green out, and then that is magenta. So magenta is pure red plus pure blue minus green. And this is where you get to magenta. And that also shows, because if you look at the line of purples, which is, if you go back just to look back at that, if you go back to the line of purples, you'll see that the green, it really is at the opposite. Like it's all the way, like green's out of the equation when it comes to the line of purples. It's so far out, it's not registering at all. Like green, you really do have to take, once you click, but if you have three lights, with those three lights, that's what I really want to get to. Okay, so go forward. With those three lights, those simple green, this green, red, and blue. With those three lights, you can create every color that we understand as colors.
Yeah, because that's basically every pixel on your TV is just that, isn't it?
Yes.
Every what we're all viewing rise above through right now. We're just looking at millions of that.
This is what we traffic
various different scales. Yeah.
Yes. And if you go to the next screen, I love that you brought that up because it's so intuitive. It's exactly what it is. The next one shows this is what we're all looking at. It's these little trinodes.
Yeah.
Look at that. This is LED. This is our world.
Welcome to Rise Above. This is what you're seeing.
Yeah. And that's all it takes. And they mix, and each one's firing in its own little way. And there's just billions. There's so many of those on our, this is just way zoomed in. But with that, every color can be created. And this is what we understand to be the full spectrum of our color. Like our crisp screens are really just a ton of those projecting red, green, and blue in their own little variations, their own little measurements of the color, and it creates every color. It's really wild. And if you go to the next screen, this is a chart of visual impairment when it comes to color blindness, and color abnormalities. And it basically is just like switches with red, green, or blue. Can you see red normally? Yes or no? Can you see blue normally? Yes or no? Can you see green normally? Yes or no? And everything else is just a little series of just switches and nodes on variations of that. They're all based on our ability to see these three colors. And so it's important to know that these three colors, light, because that's what our eyes are registering, it's light. So it's different than paint that we can manipulate on in front of us with art and like paint and mixing colors there. This is light based. This is all light based. So I want to keep that in mind. Okay, so the next slide really shows how all the colors are created, starting with red, starting with blue, starting with green. If you shine those lights Through the mixing of red and green, you get yellow, not brown like with paint. Red and blue, it's actually a magenta. If you were mixing with paint, you would get a more grayish color, more a purpley but gray. And then green and blue with light, you get cyan in the middle. And then if you mix all of those together, the cyan, the yellow, and the magenta at the center triad, you get white. All those lights, adding together. Yes.
Right. Layman's terms, devil's advocate, looking at this, magenta is a cross between red and blue. Cyan or yellow is a cross between red and green. Why is magenta unique? Because on this graph or this projection here, it looks the same as the Y and the C. It looks equal.
It does, but when you think about their measurements on the visual light spectrum, red and green aren't as far away as red and blue are, even though they're represented equally as far as like how light works, how if you shine certain lights and they make certain things, but the addition frequency between red and blue, because they are so much different in wavelength number than the addition between red and green creating yellow, because yellow vibes at a different frequency than cyan. They're all their own little frequency maths. And I think that there's something, because red and blue, and ultimately violet is the edge of the spectrum, but we really can't really register that. And that's deep blue. Deepest blue is violet. And they say roses are red, violets are blue. It's important for us to understand that we don't really start getting this purple color.
Maybe it would make more sense if it was skewed and magenta was actually at the top of a triad and had. Do you see what I mean? Because
they should make it bigger.
If you
twist it 90 degrees or 33 degrees
to the left, and magenta was like at the top.
You could do
like
that.
in the middle. I reckon that would actually be more like symbolic of the position it holds. Yeah. Sorry,
if you go to the
next
next slide, I
slides.
agree, and I think the next slide, you're right. The next slide could have been improved if it did that too, because this one actually shows how the light works. If you're shining light on it, you're adding the light together, and that one could have been rotated again. You could have had the light sources, so the magenta could have been at the top again. But it does show how certain things blend together when we're talking about adding light. Okay, but to your point earlier, the next slide shows a different process, a subtractive process, but we're still talking about light. So when you think about this, when you think about cyan, you have to comprehend that is green and blue light together. That cyan, like to get to that base. So you're taking what we built in the last one. You're taking what we built in the additive, because at the center we got to the cyan, at the center we got to the magenta, at the center we got with the yellow. Those were built, So now we're taking what we built, putting that on the outside, and then taking away from it. And when we take things away from it, we can build by removing things, because we used the blue, we used the green, we used the red to make it, so we can take away from it and get those things back through light. Because again, we're just talking about light that we've added. So if you take it away, but then at the center, then like all of those together, if you added those together, they would actually equal black at the center. If you were to take cyan, which is already two colors mixed together, you could take yellow, which is already two colors mixed together, if you were to take magenta, which is already two colors mixed together, and layer those on top of each other and mix all of those together, you would get black. Whereas the other way around, black.
Is that how you?
The absence of light. The absence. It would be black, but it would be everything. It's subtractive. Yeah, this one's subtractive. It would be the absence of light. By adding them together, you actually subtract, which is a very wild way of thinking about things. It's something from nothing. And yet, what we're about to go into is, this is magic right here. This one is magic. This is black magic. The one that we just looked at is black magic. It's creating something from, it's getting to nothing from, it's like you already built it with magic, and then you're going to I don't know. There's something about the process we just looked at that I think is like the crux of this mind magic that and Hollywood's built on it too. And so, okay, we're about to get into it. Okay, so this is a beautiful photograph of a escape in Wyoming. It's just but to get to this photograph, there's a couple of different ways we can get there. We can get there by the next slide, which is the additive process, adding the red sensitive areas and the green sensitive areas and the blue sensitive areas, which we don't really realize that's what they are, but that's exactly what they are. But when you mix those together, you get that normally colored photograph, which ultimately is an amalgamation of things registering with those 3 cones in our eyes. So it's just straight playing off the red, the green, and the blue cones in our eyes, creating together, bing, bang, boom, easy math. We can do that image in our brains very, very, very easily. There's another way to get there. And that's the next one. That's called the subtractive, which we talked about. And this is taking elements out of an image. This is a much more ghostly process, if you'll notice. Like in the blue one, there's no barn at all. It's like there's kind of like there's an emptiness to this one, but all that emptiness together creates a something. And then that something is the representation of what we understand as the additive. But to get here, we actually have to have the process before too, because without the process above, without the red, especially with photography and film, which we're about to go into, because without the process above, the red, green, and blue, we can't yield the cyan, we can't yield the magenta, we can't yield the yellow. And so we can't even, this is like more of a recreative process. This is like recreating. And we're about to go into that as well. So it's so fascinating, this building up and tearing down and building up and tearing down with color. But it all has to do with how our mind works. And I think at a certain point, it's really all just trigger the mind. So the next slide, we're all very familiar with. We just talked about all these colors, but who hasn't seen some sort of screen like this, like this technical difficulty screen, off air, some screen. Sort of test screen. They're kind of letting us know that this is everything. Like we thought we were watching programming before, but ultimately it's just like a series of these, just colors. Like this is it. You're watching colors. They may be amalgamation. We may put them in different frequencies and put these colors over here and put these colors over here, times a million, a billion, a bazillion. But ultimately, this is what you're watching. You're just watching color. And I think that I just love when they tell us the truth in plain sight, and they do all the time. So when we first started seeing color on film, and you can go to the next one, it started with like cartoons. A lot of people think that the first color was Wizard of Oz, and that was important because it was one of the first Technicolor films, and we're about to go into that because it's a really important. It brought color really to what we understood. Like it brought in color, brought in this Technicolor. It's like a magical technology we're about to get into. But there was also cartoons always have a way. In cartoons and newspapers were the first thing color in newspapers. The first bit of color to ever exist in a newsprint happened before it was on screen, and that was through cartoons. Cartoons were colorized first, and then on screen, cartoons were colorized first. And I think I'm not sure why they do that, but it's done for a reason. Even it could be anything else, but they use cartoons because I think it's more subliminal. It's like a Trojan horse, and I think that's an easier way to introduce these technologies, these magical technologies. So this is kind of like a cartoon version that existed before the Wizard of Oz, but just slightly before. And then the next panel shows the Wizard of Oz, which is known. This is like the movie. This is the color movie. This is when we think about the color age, the colorization of Hollywood, this is what we understand
glorious
as
Technicolor.
Right, which only existed as a technology for a very short time. The way that this movie was created and the way that this movie, the technology and the process that the Wizard of Oz utilized and introduced into as color of how we do things, it's another one of those things that got lost to time. And I'm really like, it's just another one of those things. It was like a magical, almost spectacle, like almost pre-planned, unrecreatable, mystical, magical technology. And we're going to go into it. So I think this is really fascinating. So the next slide shows how this is the technology that was used. And these things had to be rented.
Wow.
These were it was such a cumbersome, this type of technology only really lasted like less than 2 decades. That this tri-film technology, which is what introduced this insane colorization process to what we understand as color movies. The Wizard of Oz was known for this hyper color, and that was how it was brand new, and it was a secret process that they had to be rented. These film cameras, tri-film cameras, had to be rented, and they were like 600 pounds. They cost so much money that it was unsustainable for it to actually work. Only a few films were actually introduced to it, and it was really just to push this new color revolution onto our eyeballs. And then after, it was replaced by this very simple process, which just got pushed out to the masses. But it's always this first like magical, mystical process that nobody can do anymore. And we'll go into that because again, it's like one of those things that just totally gets lost to time. So if you go to the next slide, basically it was filmed on, The Wizard of Oz was filmed on 3 black and white films, but one black and white film was sensitive to red, one black and white film was sensitive to blue, and one was sensitive to the green colors. And they created like a little imprint on the black and white. And if you go to the next slide, those black and white little imprints. So one is sensitive to the red, as you'll see, that barn, it's black. So it's sensitive to the red. The other one's sensitive to the green. You can see it's picking up the grass. The other one's to the sky. You see it's to the blue. And then there's this magical process. There's another process that happens outside of the film cameras, off-site. This is what people really don't know. Away from the movie theater, away from like the filming, like the movie stage, off-site is
at
this
a secret underground base.
At a secret, yes. The next slide, I'll show you. Go to the next slide. This is where it's done. The next slide is this.
The imbibition.
The imbibation process.
Imbibation.
And imbibation, what does that sound like? It's imbibing, like to take in alcohol. And that really is actually what it is. It's this secret process that introduces, just like the ethanol alcohol was introduced onto that coal to bring out the purples and the magenta at the very beginning that what we talked about. Like it needed that ethanol alcohol base, like to release some magical color. This imbibation process, which was a patented secret process, which always is patented secret process. This imbibation process was used again to magically transfer this new set of colorizations back onto a brand new set of films. So it took 3 sets, 3 different. First, it took three black and white films, and then from those black and white films, it took another set of 3 colors. So like a total of like 10 strips of film to create this one final process, which was all this really, it was unsustainable, didn't last very long. But I think it was like this purposefully cumbersome process, again, using this magical, mystical magenta, which is released through these chemicals. It's just this synthetic process, but it plays tricks on the eye. It's very important. The next slide shows these magical chemicals that are impossible to recreate. Those are what they would run through that previous image. That's what they would like run through those secret tubes off-site, away from where they filmed it. And
it's like that Nubian dopamine, Cochid fast violet, Cochid alzarine blue, Mordor argon. God, cyanide compound.
And these are all like synthetically made, again, just like at the top where we talked about the synthetic purples. Like there's really no explanation on how we get here. These are all just it's like, so we're introducing these synthetic materials that all are based on these like alcohol introductions. The next slide shows how so we start with the red, green, blue, then we run it through this imbibation process. We end up getting this new subtractive, yellow, cyan, magenta. Those put together like create a new thing. And I think it's really interesting because imbibation,
this is literally like some black magic. It's like
it feels
technology.
like black magic. It really does. And the fact that they have to do it through alcohol, which is
super
called
chemical
spirits,
technicolor pumped into your eyeballs, comrades.
Directly.
Imagine. Wait a minute. When did this film come out? Was it the 60s? It must be
39.
before the 60s. Whoa! I thought like the 50s. Or so 1939. Because I remember watching this film. The first time I watched this film, I'll tell you right now, was in like 1987, and I was in Florida at my auntie's, and I was like, "What's this stupid black and white movie you've got on?" And it was obviously the start of it. It starts in black and white, and then when it turned into glorious Technicolor, I was like, "Holy shit! It looks amazing!" What must have people have thought in 1939, the first time they saw that in the movie theater, the moving picture theater, or whatever they called it back then? That must have been an experience.
It was previously unseen.
Yeah. No one had ever seen that shit before.
Unregistered. No one had ever received that type of. Nobody had ever seen that type of light coming from the screens before, coming from their screens. Maybe they'd seen a fuchsia flower in the distance, because really this color really only existed in florals. And then until Mr. Perkins at the very top invented his purple dye or whatever, then it started being, in the 1860s, it really started, theoretically into, that's when I think history really starts, but that's when it started coming into fashion and all this stuff. But this is still like a relatively new thing for us to see, because you're right. Up until this point, we had seen these really drab sepia, black and white, silent picture movies. Color movies were brand new. This was so insanely beyond before its time.
But what
And
we've
the fact
also
that-
got to remember is what was on the screen is obviously echoed in real life. So before we saw these amazing Technicolor colours on the screen, that means they also didn't exist in, say, like print. That means billboards. That means shop signs. That means what you actually see in the street. That means what the colours that people are wearing in their clothes. So what you were suggesting earlier on is actually really quite plausible, that before this technology was introduced, say 1939, before that, the colour range of everyday life was actually much, much more drab.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Much more drab.
Yeah. Especially when you think about the wars. The wars too. You think about people going people were at the time when you picture like factory workers en masse and people wearing these drab neutral colors. Like there was fashion there was no sense of fashion back then. It was.
I bet blood
was like
looks
very
a lot brighter
basic
back
colors.
then. If someone got shot, they were bleeding, or someone got stabbed in the street, I bet the blood looked really bright.
Ooh, that's on
like much more stark. Like if there was a murder in the street or something, it must have looked like terrible, like a big pool of blood back then. If everything was so drab, it could have been.
It reminds me of the book The Giver, where everything's in black and white, and they begin to see the color again. Because what if we go through time? I mean, if you really look back in history, they say that it was like purples and Tyrarian, all this stuff. But I kind of, I don't really think it really existed in the way that they tell us it existed. I think it's a much more rare process. And so I love that. Okay, so I love Disney always gives us these little truths. And there's this one scene in Dumbo where Dumbo takes a sip of alcohol, like of champagne, and he begins to immediately see pink elephants. And just the idea of like these magenta pink elephants being something like a hallucination, I thought that and they're specifically magenta, and it has to do with alcohol too, and the imbibition process using this magical magenta. I think that there's almost like a drunkenness happening in our brain when we are given magenta, when I think we're almost, it's almost affecting us in a way that is powerful that we may not recognize. And I think that it's important to note that all these things go through like a filter of alcohol to get to this end point of magenta. And then also the next slide, there's this very specific color of pink, which is called drunk tank pink. And you can read, there's all these different psychological studies that have been done on it. It was originally thought to subdue prisoners
to pacify them,
but it didn't. It did the opposite. It like enraged them.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. It's something about the color. They thought that the color was going to be very calming and soothing, but I don't know if I believe these.
It's making me feel nauseous just looking at it.
Yeah, it was like very unsettling. It was a very unsettling thing. It didn't, and so instead they settled on like a baby blue, which is when you think about like our prison walls, like of course the sky is a baby blue because it's the most soothing color for us to realize that we're in prison. But the next slide is okay. So when you put all those together, when you build it back up, when you build the yellow, the cyan, the magenta all back up, you get the final product, which is this. So it's important to note that it's not just red, green, and blue film. It never was. It's this whole process that actually it's like so many types of film, and then it finally ends up, and it's multi process. And then at the end of it is this. And I think these crazy processes are they're just red herrings, and it's a beautiful film. But at the end of the day, like the next slide shows how it was replaced, by the mid 50s. It was just totally obsolete. Then it didn't exist anymore. It was introduced to the new technology that replaced it was something that was so easy to use, didn't require like any of the things that this Technicolor specific Wizard of Oz process required, which is insane. That type of technology just was like boop, gone, and it all shut down, and it's been lost to time. And now, and the Eastman Kodak company like replaced it with just a much easier thing to use. And ever since then, we have not been. If you go to the next slide is that just shows that it was replaced. totally obsolete, like I really just think it existed for this movie and just to introduce this new wild color to our brains. The next slide shows this summation of it. It was basically like a gimmick. It was a spectacle. It was called like a virtual reality of its day because it was so hyper real. It was hyper unreal. The colors were so unusually created, and the process was so magical and mystical and still can't be created to this day. Like no one is doing this three-strip technicolor process to this day. It's anyway, it's a form of its own, I think, magic. The next slide was exactly what you talked about, was this going from this moment in the film where it goes from black and white, what we understand
from dull color to an absolute explosion of color for the brain and senses. Yeah.
This was a sensation for everyone. Many people went through this, other than cartoons that maybe you had seen. This was really the first time you could see it on screen in a significant way. There were a few Technicolor attempts before this, but this was something that was unlike anything else that had ever been done. So the next slide. The Emerald City, I think, is very important. We're talking about magenta, and why did I even bring up the Wizard of Oz? Because I think it relies on magenta at the end of the day, like that magenta.
It's
packed full to the brim. The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it's a highly occult movie.
Yeah, there's so much. It's color. It's color. It's how color works with like the introduction of color to us. It's like you're talking about color. You're talking about film. You're talking about the Wizard of Oz, and what's interesting to note is the next slide shows that magenta and this very specific green screen green. Ooh. These are equal opposites. They are each other's opposite. Perfect opposite, opposing pair. These are opposing colors.
I think it's very interesting that magenta is the opposing opposite of the green screen, because people have no idea right now about how much of what is presented to us in our favourite series or movies or even the news is actually green screen. It's way beyond most people's understanding. So I think it's very, very, very telling that we've got these two binary opposites here, and it's not red and blue that we're presented with in our phony like elections and our politics and our football teams. The actual underlying important colours here are magenta and the sort of luminous green.
Right. It's almost like this is how it's done in the real world. We use this green screen green, and then this is how it's done in our brain. We trick you with this fake magenta, this really powerful polar opposite, like super hyper powerful color. And they exist in opposition with each other. There's something powerful happening with these two colors. I believe. I think. And if you go to the next slide, this is one that I'll just talk about it real quick. There was this. The one thing that I changed is I added this slide about the green. There was like this pink shoe. Pink and gray. Some people saw it as like green and white. Some people saw it as pink and gray, and it was this optical illusion. It was kind of like a new gold dress, blue dress thing. Anyway, but it just showed how there is a whole host of illusion that goes along with pink. But we'll go to we're back at the magenta. This is the color, and I love that it has FF in it twice because it's like false flag. Because I think a lot of double false flag. But I think that this color shows up. So I just wanted to talk about.
It's also got oof in it as well, like oof.
Yeah, it does. Oof. Because I mean, when you see it, oh my gosh! Actually, we're about to say oof a couple times, but okay. So my big oof is the next slide, which is John Ramsey.
Here we go. You won't be able to resist this oof.
I can't.
The trademark rabbit hole. Take it away.
Look at that shirt. Look at that shirt. What color is that? That's magenta. That's a fuchsia. That's a oof. Look at the next one. She's another one. She's oof.
It is John Burnett Ramsey. This is like the Madeleine McCann of America for anyone that doesn't know who this character is. That's the best way to put it.
Previously, Human Vibration did a full presentation on this.
This is what made this is for me what put Human Vibration on the map.
We came to the conclusion that this little girl never even existed in the first place. Hence the magenta.
Talk about dark magic.
Yeah.
Talk about
That's fucking dark.
Yeah,
That's
really
very
dark.
That's real dark.
Did she only appear in magenta, this little girl?
What? What was that?
Did she only appear in magenta like every photo? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Well,
We're skipping ahead there.
and there's a few, but you can go to the next one because it's
Okay.
really just
Kennedy's wife, yeah.
This is an oof color. This was an
Is this
oof
what she
day,
was wearing on
you
the
know?
day?
Yeah, on the
Oh, of
day.
course. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, I want to go back real quick because I want to talk about one thing real quick. And okay, so she's wearing a magenta dress. That's the center. And she's also wearing a red sash, which is one side. And if you scroll down just slightly, she's on top of a blue star.
Oh, right. So you got
Right
the full
there.
spectrum there.
You got
And the
the full
green
spectrum.
and the green in the background.
Yep, and the green in the background and the yellow. So it's almost like magenta.
It's
the whole
actually like a
frame.
test. That's
It's the whole
almost
thing.
like a
And she's
test
got-
image. That's almost like the
Yeah.
test screen, isn't it?
It's the whole spectrum. The next, then if you go to the next, I think it's actually the next slide, you'll see that Jackie's wearing. Okay, so she's wearing the magenta coat. She's got the red roses, she was not supposed to have red roses. She was supposed to have yellow roses because yellow rose is Texas. Anyway, she had the red roses for this reason. And she's wearing a blue, she's wearing a violet bag, which doesn't go with her outfit. It doesn't really match. She should be wearing a darker black bag, but she's wearing the full line of purples. She's like actually representing the full line of purples with magenta, with red, and with a deep blue. And I think that that's significant. And if you this color just shows up. If you go to the next slide, 2001 was color of the year was this color, and the name of the color was fuchsia rose. And this color is Pantone. They're like the god of color, the Bible of color, and they pick a color every year, and it's significant in certain areas. It's unheard of in other areas, but they always pick a color. So the 2001 year, before September 11th, they did fuchsia rose. Fuchsia meaning fox, which we understand that, to outwit, outsmart. Rose actually means done in secret, sub rosa. So I put that definition down there. It means anything.
Hence the
something
secret
done.
society, the Rosicrucians.
Yes, and you'll actually start to see in a lot of these trauma things. There's a lot of people named Rose. You'll start to see stuff.
Yeah, sure.
If you go to the next one, it just kind of shows. This is just one of those oof images.
Oh yeah, look down here. Look at that magenta just poking through.
Just front and center. This just front and center. The next one is.
Oh,
just kind of jumps out.
one of our
This
favorite
image
characters here on Rise
This
Above.
image is often cropped, so you don't see.
This is
Like her hand
photos.
is- if you
This
look
is
at it,
Photoshop. Stop saying fake news.
This is a weird. I mean, this image is everywhere. We see this image all the time. This is such a weird, fake, strange image. It's bizarre, but the colors here, magenta is right there, hyper on her leg. That usually gets cropped out. We usually don't see how flashy her magenta is there. I think that's interesting that it's.
I
in
never
that
realised she had magenta like flashy pants on there before.
Yeah.
See that.
The next one is faded, but this was the Apollo 13 flight plan. It was they had hot pink covers. I thought that was kind of interesting to note. That was, if you remember, it was kind of it was made into a Hollywood movie in its own right. Tom Hanks, just one of those ones that go wrong, and then it goes. They have to do all sorts of heroic things to get it going back. And I don't know. I thought it was interesting that it had a pink cover. The next one is I did begin to notice. This kind of goes into where I started registering this color. But politicians began, I felt like a big push on magenta. Nancy Pelosi being one, just one in particular, where she's always wearing this color. But I started noticing it most. Well, one was with the breast cancer awareness. I was always wondering why they lean so hard into pink. I think it could be because that's kind of its own little psyop. If you go to the next slide, just as a nod to that. But the next one is when I really started noticing it everywhere. This was in the George Floyd riots in the United States. And there was this guy, I just remember him as pink pizza box man. And this was in 2020, and he was everywhere.
I remember the pizza box dude. I remember
everywhere.
him. Yes, he was.
Yes. And his shirt had something about the Village, and I remember the Village being this M. Night Shyamalan
Wasn't he
movie.
seen trying to put bricks through windows?
No. Hang on. So this dude, there was a dude. This dude was like a agent provocateur.
Yeah.
And they had this. Do you remember they had the umbrella dude?
Yeah. I
Yes.
remember
And
that.
he was he had his black umbrella on. He was clearly CIA or ops or something.
And he had that
And then this
magenta
dude had his
facing
pizza
up.
box. And when the dude with the umbrella was smashing the glasses, he went up to him and was like, "Dude, what are you doing? You can't do that." But there's footage of those two walking together earlier in the daytime. Both of them together.
Oh, right.
The
So
dude
they
with
were
the
just
umbrella
creating a
and this
scene.
dude. Yeah. So
Crisis
they're both
actors.
crisis
Stunt.
actors for the
Stunt.
Hegelian dialectic.
Yeah,
Fucking
it felt like a stunt. That's just when I
retards.
first noticed it. I was like, "Gosh, this color just like started to see." Once you notice it, it's one of those colors that you can't
Yeah,
turn
it
off. Like, once you start
symbolises
seeing
LARPing. It symbolises LARPing if I see
Well,
magenta.
the next, speaking of like, okay, so this was from the George Floyd, but then I started looking at the George Floyd thing. This was like from the security footage of the George Floyd.
Yeah.
I don't.
What, a
she's not
magenta-
related to
magenta
it, but like, what
burqa?
are the odds that someone in a magenta burqa would walk by like seconds before this goes
Isn't
down?
the whole point of a burqa that you don't
To be
pay attention to
low-key.
yourself? Like, yeah, it's
be
the whole point of it is black, isn't it? Like,
Yes,
Satanic death
unless you're seconds away from some sort of psyop. Yeah, that's the only time it would make sense. The next one, I just wanted to remind you, this color again is the very center of what I think is the line of purples. Magenta is a purple. Magenta is as the center of purples. Why is purple important? If you do any research on purple, you're going to go back to the royalty. And the next slide is about, again, it's like this line of purples is like lineage. What is royalty? But this lineage, this line of succession. And I think royalty is its own projection. And I think that's an important word. If you go to the next slide, like it kind of just explains purple's always been tied to royalty, and they used to say it was made through the shells. They crushed up shells, and that's why only royals could use purple colors and purple robes and biblical royalty and stuff. Even back then, it was because there was like this very specific process which can't be recreated today. Blah blah blah. We hear that all the time. Anyway, I think that might be a little bit of an illusion. I think it's a projection. The next slide shows almost like a literal projection. We were privy to that this year, right? Like a literal hologram.
The peasant's hologram, yeah.
Yeah. And that's not insignificant. They're leaning into it. If you go to the next slide, it shows her portrait in the royal gallery is actually a hologram. They're really, really, really leaning into this concept. And I think the royals have always been a projection of power, a projection of royalty. And if you go to the next slide, when we're talking about projections, we're right back at this RGB. We're right back at this is holography. Like this is holograms. This is the Queen's hologram. It's just red, green, and blue. Again, it's just how our eyes work, how our light works and are coming into our eyes. This projection of reality that we see as a hologram, as a real color, hypercolor hologram of the Queen in our carriage, that's just red, green, and blue. We're back at square one. We're back at square 1, 2, and 3. We're right back to, and I love that purple rain. Yeah. And exactly, purple rain as in the reign of power, like to reign over one. It's a purple rain. Great comment. If you go to the next slide, this is how holograms work, essentially. And again, I want to note, if you look on the left side, okay, so right side, red, green, blue. Got it. But if you look at the bottom and the top, there's another emulsion. There's another emulsion process. And early holograms use silver halide as a photographic emulsive process. And that's the same that was used in film. That's one of the same chemicals, one of these private, secret chemicals, that made it all work. These ethanol, alcohol-based emulsive spirits. Yes, exactly.
They had to conjure some spirits.
Holograms need it too. The early holograms required that as well. Later holograms are light-based, but these early ones, they required emulsive processes, and we're back at it. And the next slide is, this is from this year, when NASA, they sent a hologram physician into space. Hologram doctors beamed into the International Space Station for like a checkup to visit, quote unquote, for a checkup, a checkup with an astronaut. I just thought that was hilarious. And then the next slide is just, we're being, again with the magenta, we're being shown so much about this new web telescope, web.
We're not being told that that's a photo.
I think
it wouldn't surprise me nowadays.
It's like some kind of coffin.
This is a HD photo of a satellite.
Actually, I kind of think that someone is saying that this is a legit.
No way.
Oh, yeah, no. I think
way.
so.
Let me zoom in, please. Stop.
Well, the next one they are saying, and this one has a lot of magenta.
Okay.
This one reminds me again of the pants. This one reminds me of the pants of that Virginia whatever from Epstein. But
this reminds you of Epstein's pants. What photograph of Epstein pants have you seen to see like this?
No, it was those pants from that photo that we were looking at. The one with
right.
Prince Edward. Her purple pants look like this.
Prince Andrew.
This
Prince Andrew.
Oh yeah, Prince Andrew. But this is a photo from the Webb telescope that they said. This is a brand new photo, which had very heavy on magentas. I don't believe outer space as we are taught and told. We're kind of wrapping up. All this to say, like magentas in outer space now. The next slide shows this kind of reminded me of what it exists here. Like we can conjure these colors. We can experience these colors. If you've seen these little things in movies or if you've ever experienced that in a museum or something, like you can, plasma usually represents purple. I think purple is energy. I think that, but magenta is energy. Like we talked about, it's the mixing of the red and the blue and like the opposite of the spectrum. And I think that there is this like weird energetic thing that's represented and conjured and brought forth with magenta. And the next slide is, I'm not really even sure why I can't remember why I put this slide in there, but I guess it's just to reinforce that this, it does exist. Like this color does exist in what we understand as reality, but all that only exists because that's how our eyes receive light. It has like whether a color is real or not real is totally out of the equation at this point when we really understand what we're doing with color, because it's so individualistic on what we perceive as color, and it's so human based and it has nothing to do with anything other than how our eyes are built. And like we could be perceiving things totally differently. So the fact that like, I don't know, I think we get bogged down. I know I have been bogged down in the past by saying how color works, but okay, I'm ending with this slide. I love when I see color in the wild, so to speak, or like on social media. If I see something's purple, I always use the little eyes with the purple magenta magic ball. And this is a deleted scene from The Wizard of Oz where she sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow in a really sad, they cut it because it was too sad, but she sings sadly Somewhere Over the Rainbow up in the witch's castle, and it's in front of this glowing magenta orb. And I just love that in my research about the film, I found that this was a deleted scene and it had my favorite little symbol in it. And it's the symbol that I use when I'm looking for purples, when I'm doing stuff on purples and magenta. And I found that when I was doing this presentation. So I just thought I would end with that because it felt very...
And the whole point that they put that as an emoji anyway.
I love it.
A magenta emoji. Come on.
And then it's a templates too, because it's like I got a gold base, and it's
the people who wrote The Wizard of Oz and directed it. They knew some shit. They were initiated.
They knew some shit.
They made it specifically for that emoji.
100%.
No, that was another amazing presentation as far as I'm concerned.
Thank
Didn't
you for
really
driving
expect
that one.
anything less. No, that was brilliant. Is it right that you were spurred into making that by something that Sam Carno sent you? Just something about one aspect of magenta? Yes,
there was a real lengthy, I would say, expose on magenta, a real deep dive on magentas that was getting a lot of eyeballs and a lot of views, and it was. I went through it and I was like, I love how people are looking into color, but at the end of the day, like, I think that I can only look at things. I was like, how am I going to look at I don't know. I was tempted to do like a side by side, like here's what they said and here's what I found in theirs, and let me see what but then I was like, okay, let me absorb what I can. Let me see what interests me, but I guess I can really only do color the way that I would naturally approach it. And who knows what brilliant. That is. It's so interesting. But I love how you guys have every single time. My favorite thing is you've given me what seems to be a narrow parameter. Like it seems to be something like a very simple prompt, but I always come back with something in that line but unexpected, and I like that. That's the
energy.
I like that. That's the energy.
I
the sand or the templates.
Yeah. I just said templates of a crumbling reality, and you came back with this amazing presentation about sand.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sand.
Whoa. No, unforgettable. Once again, right, I know we're on a time limit tonight and we've already gone 10 minutes over your allotted time. Sorry. It's okay. It was bound to happen.
Sorry about that.
Once again, Human Vibration, thank you very much. If people want to get hold of you, it's still Twitter, isn't it?
Yes, Twitter, Human Vibration, @Human Vibration, Insta, @Human
Sam
Vibration
Carno, can you get the link
Insta.
up on the screen?
And then
Hurry up,
Realize
Sam.
Radio with my longest friend in this truther community, like me and Rambo Seek the Truth 101. Find him on Twitter. He's we have a radio show together. We do radio show. It sounds so old fashioned, but that's ultimately what it is. Like, yeah, we call it Realize
like
Radio.
what we're doing here. It's just a bit prettier.
Yeah, well, you guys have a wonderful multimedia element that we've never. You guys are robust. I've never. Kudos to you. I'm always so impressed by how much
We
you
like
mix
to cover
in,
the whole
how many
spectrum.
voices. Yeah,
It's a
I've already
proper
taken so much of your
explosion
time,
today.
but-
Look at it, it's an explosion. All
I
right.
love it.
Again, we'll have you back soon. Don't worry. It's
Thanks,
a given.
guys.
Take care,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
All right. Rise above. What's
Rise
this
above.
button going to do?
33 million people in Britain are mentally ill. No, but not.
Let me tell you, unbelievable.
Right here, right now, is where we draw the line.
Eat it off the floor.
Going through them all.
Why not?
Big deep breath, maximum Statham. Statham, Mark, might be like up. Yeah. Yo. No predictions or prophecies, just scriptures and mythologies. No instructions in the Odyssey. Inhale, exhale logically, part of the tribe. Earn my stripe, hunt with the pack. Long dark night, poison darts, long blow pipes. I take aim at the moon shines bright. Entered this jungle as a student. I was acting humble and prudent, practicing to become fluent in a sacred tribal movement. Master arts the shamans using, elevating to more than a human. Raise the vibes so the hate's reducing. Absorb the light the sun's producing. Air's electric, feeling the charge of thunder. Dark foreboding sky we got under. Hectic in the presence of wonder. Open your eyes, awake from the slumber. Life is a prey, act like a hunter. Enter the battle, emerge from the bunker. It is the rain dance, I am the drummer. Dance to the rain, it's a stormy summer, look yonder. To the hills and valleys that mankind wander. Brave in the storm, searching for honor. Allegiance sworn, command and conquer. Seize the moment, and you'll get drenched with the heavens of open. Draw for the power, more than potent. Keep on moving. I'm live in the belly of the beast. I stand firm and steady on my feet. Still inclined to write a little piece of that word on the street you're still trying to release. I spit fire, heavy on the beat. Training's done, ready, complete. I'm prepared to stare in the eyes of defeat, then stand up tall to the Babylon fleet. There's a power inside me, like a force of nature. Disregarding imminent danger. Whipping up a storm, the destruction's major. Different form with the awesome flavor. Babylon agent, now I'm in our gator. Exit agreement, place now wager. Since days of the parchment paper, they search for the savior. This is a system test. Adjust your parameters. Corrupt, scandalous, life uncrude and amorous. Are you a victim? Yeah. Cameras flash, they dazzle us. You can't predict threat. Of a flow so deep and cavernous, deep and hazardous. With incredible length and wide diameters. Not your average maverick. Locked your 16s, leave them staggering. Like a sick dream in the mind of a sick teen. When Freddy come daggering, I spray like whipped cream. In the face of a clown for imagining. They could ever come a challenge and I leave them spinning in my slipstream. It's not happening. This is a system test. No routine system check. Keep your eyes on the screen, but it's lies on the screen. Check for the imminent threat. This is a system test. No routine system check. You gotta stay switched on so your wisdom's blessed. And look for the crack with the system stretched. Double L 2020. Welcome to the roaring 20s. The slumbering lion has awoken. Double LMC.
Before we look at the awful content of Clown World, we like to fire up a device called the catalytic converter. This piece of ancient Ramish technology basically means that all of this terrible Clown World media, we can use it and fuel this machine to try and have some spiritual, or at least maybe not progression, but we can at least get some comedy out of it, right? Because at the end of the day, there is quite a lot of sludge. I think we could do the graphic back one. Let me just put that one here. That's better. No, definitely not that one.
So to celebrate Lord Sausage Fingers as King Sausage Fingers, you can add some style by adding the official emblem to your custom branded clothing. And if you know anything about Pizzagate, you'll know what this means.
We should put that on the t-shirt for anti-Coviet as well. Don't forget, anti-Coviet t-shirts are going to be available
I don't think
on the
people
website
want to be
very soon.
walking around.
No, definitely not.
With that.
Right. Oh, here's a good meme by Future Ghost. I believe Future Ghost used Al Gore to make this meme. Because remember I was saying last week.
Oh, this is a Schwabian blend then.
Yeah. It's like got a full body. It's got like a Schwabian blend on top. You see how it's all
Schwabian undertone.
Yeah, Schwabian undertones. Oh, can someone get me some more of that fucking sweet cider? Snell. Snell, can you sort me out, please? With some ice. Thank you, Snell. Right, so if anyone, I know some people don't like the AI art, all the flashy lights, but we don't care.
Oh, come on, get with the program.
Yeah, so right, I told the memesters because there were some comments. Oh, I feel neglected. I've not neglected. I feel moribund, like useless because now you can smash out Al Gore images. What does it leave for us? Give me some scraps. Right, I said, listen, memesters, this is what you need to do. You need to harness that fucking Al Gore technology. You need to get the characters you want from the fucking
from Clown World.
From the Clown World. From your what is it? What's the Parasite Media? Fucking global Parasite Media. Your global, So we've got to remember our own terms, mate. Get your Clown World Global Parasite Media screenshots where you make your memes.
Yeah.
But then
your GPM.
Yeah, your GPM, sorry. Yeah, get your GPM meme material, but then you use the Al Gore to make the sick background. Can you hear these peasants?
Listen to the peasantry in the green room.
Fucking hell.
Because someone shut the door to the studio. Nice one, Chris.
Do we need a red light on the outside the door or something? Fucking hell.
No flavoured one because Andy PG's.
Oh, Andy PG's fucking next.
Well, I bought around a 10-pint thing of cider and there's about half a pint.
There's
left.
another box. There's another box in the shed, 20 litres.
Yeah, not of the nice rhubarb one.
Oh, no, of course not. You fucking rhubarb cider. Where were we? Right, now we're getting down to business. So I told them, use Al Gore to make some epic scene that you've never even seen before. But, use it inventively and then Schwab your fucking meme material on the top of it.
Yeah.
And Future Ghost picked up the gauntlet, mate.
So let's just break this down. What we've got? We've got King David.
King David is some sort of Joan of Arc character.
And then we've got, is that Tate? Is that Andrew
It
Tate?
is Andrew Tate. That will annoy people.
Bow and arrow. And then it's Kevin Spacey.
That's not Kevin Spacey. That's Alex Jones.
Yes, it is Alex Jones. Isn't it?
Kevin Spacey.
So I'm just looking at this from the side of the screen. But I could tell that was Andrew
Shots
Tate.
fired. You just called Alex Jones Kevin Spacey.
He does look like that from this angle.
A little bit.
Sat here.
So, I mean, it's a fantastic meme. That putting that triad of characters together, that is it's got its own
And I wonder how long this took Future Ghost to get together with the AI to get to grips with it. Because you know what I mean? It takes a few goes.
Well, it does. Or you could get it to come up with some sick thing like that and then just get the right faces. It depends. But it's good work.
Yeah, it's great work.
It works. And then, does anyone remember we were talking about the Nashville shooter that is just full of 33s?
During the season of Sacrifice.
Yeah, obviously. And, this is from AJ, who watches, he's a long-time viewer of the show, he's from around here as well. He used to come to the protests. He's a bit of a big fan and sort of, sends stuff back and forth for Human Vibration. And she talks about templates a lot, yeah? So 11, which one's 11 out of Stranger Things and which one's the shooter? I don't know. But yeah, it's a template thing. I just saw this, in these Clown World Schwab shows, I do make some pretty weird juxtapositions, but sometimes that's what the good shit. You know what I'm saying?
Mate.
Absolutely.
This is getting straight to the point. Mr. NPC.
I talk about juxtapositions, putting these two random things together. Mr. NPC's drinking his prime. He's had his Britney
He's masked up with a Rainbow Mafia.
He's got Rainbow Mafia fucking balaclava on, and he's waving his compliance flag. And then on the right-hand side, juxtaposed with it, we've got man ends his life after an AI chatbot encouraged him to sacrifice himself to stop climate change.
I'm not going to